What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show, talking today's 7-game NBA slate on this Wednesday afternoon. A little switch up in the crew today. I'm, of course, Draft Cheat. We got Mangone, as always, and special guest, Mr. Boss T, joining us, hanging out with the peons for a day on the free show, giving the takes. I know you're headed to the Super Bowl shortly, Big T. Hashtag how rich, I suppose. And maybe not for long because, we haven't talked about the Super Bowl, but I got a sense that you might not be on the winning side. You might be going down with game manager Brock Purdy losing some cheddar on the Super Bowl. Am I right? Is my take right? Big Chiefs hater, Big T. How you doing, man?
Did you go back on the Chiefs? You flip-flopped again?
I've only flip-flopped on the Chiefs wagon.
But yeah, going to the Super Bowl. For Derek Ringring, I was on here yesterday, so it's been a while. I was on here yesterday on the free show, so back-to-backs. Trying to come on more of the free shows, especially now with football winding down and some of that ending. We got our horse racing tonight, Super Bowl this weekend. It's going to be a great weekend, and I like coming on with you two. I love coming on the free show with you guys. I miss it. I like doing these shows a lot.
Yeah, definitely a different vibe for those that are members. You know this, the free show versus the up to lock. You're answering a lot more questions up to lock. Free show kind of give your more general takes on the games, how they're going to go, more player takes, that kind of thing. So, yeah, fun to do both, but happy to have you here today, Big T. Mangone, I know you're excited to be graced by the presence of the big man. How you doing on this Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, it feels good. I might be in Taylor Swift's box, but I'm on the Bang Bang Niner gang. I am with Big T, and now you're outnumbered, DC. I normally am here with AP and DC, and I'm getting destroyed by the Pat Mahomes stuff. And, the tables have turned, DC. So Brock Purdy is going to game manage all over your ass and take home a Super Bowl. So I can't wait. I'm excited. Going to watch CMC run all over that Chiefs defense, and hey, you guys already got an offensive lineman that's a little banged up and might not play. That stuff matters, DC. People forget about the offensive lineman. So I think this Chiefs team is going to struggle more than people think. The Niners are going to just be able to run on them. And it's going to be a competitive, fun game. I don't think it's just going to be, Niners win 35-0. But, yeah, I think it's going to be a fun one. And I'm excited to see Brock Purdy, CMC, George Kittle. I'm excited to see the crew raise up the trophy and get their rings.
Yeah, should be a fun Super Bowl. We've talked about it a little bit on the show, so don't need to go back into it. But pretty much for me, it just comes down to Travis Kelce versus Isaiah Pacheco for the most part. So I don't really care who wins the game. Just trying to get that sweat right for my big sweat on Sunday. Should be a fun time. What's that?
You aren't playing Pacheco as your key dude.
Well, I already have him in this NFC Holden thing. So
he hasn't been in that contest that he gets a.
Oh yeah, we got to ship that. I wasn't under. Yeah, I picked up the tail end. I pulled a Mangone and missed the beginning. Pacheco, we need Pacheco. I'm on your side for that thing. 150, right?
It's a locked in sweat at this point. So
$150K, right?
Yeah, a good chance, about a 55-60% chance to take it down.
What will be like the fades, the key fades for you?
It's Kelce. I'm fading Kelce as like the big fade, which doesn't
Pacheco,
make me feel great.
I got you.
Because he's been awesome, and also he's been like the one player maybe outside of Mahomes that I've been on more in my DFS career than like any other player. So it kind of sucks to have a huge sweat against a player that I'm like a huge believer in, but
the good news for you is like the Niners have to match up with Kelce. Kelce's the man. Don't get me wrong; he could crush anyone, but they have to at least give you a chance. Like they're gonna game plan for him. Their linebackers are good.
Yeah,
they have to at least give you a chance.
I think 2 weeks to game plan for Kelce after his big 2 games. You would think they would make him a priority, and then the other guy that can really bail me out, even if that doesn't go my way, is Deebo Samuel, who I think is going to crush in this game. Nothing left to save him for, right? That's one thing with Deebo is that it's kind of the injury risk, but Super Bowl healthy, I think Deebo is going to get involved early and often. Big T, what time you headed out there? I know it's on DraftKings, the Onyx package, right? What's the deal with that? Give us a little rundown on what that looks like in Vegas.
Yeah, so it was nice because it was actually last year, 2022 now, was the Onyx Rewards for DraftKings. I didn't really want to pick anything. I wanted the TV It was a 100-inch TV or something that was valued at $15,000, and I really wanted it for my room. Everyone that I was going to put it on the wall, and then they took it out of the damn catalog, and I was so tilted because I didn't know what else I wanted to pick. So at the time, obviously the Bengals were good and stuff. I'm like, oh, whatever. First Super Bowl in Vegas, I'll take my chances. But I really didn't want to pick it. I didn't. I just didn't know what else to pick. So I'm like, I'll do it. And then fast forward a year ahead, the Vegas Super Bowl, these tickets are freaking outrageous. I would sell the whole package if I could, because I think it's worth 40 or 50,000, I would guess, on DK's dime. And it was supposed to only be valued at 15 was like what they give you. So, I mean, you're talking, and DK's really smart these days. They don't give you the tickets ahead because obviously a lot of people might just go on and sell them. When you see that kind of money, they give them to you, I think, the day of. They're like, you can get the tickets the day of. And once you're there and stuff, I mean, you're going to go and all that stuff. So looks freaking awesome. I mean, it's going to be super expensive to get in the door. And we got lower levels was part of it too, guaranteed lower level seats. So that's good. And then you got like, obviously DraftKings just signed like LeBron to endorse them. There's like some Clutch party. Clutch is LeBron's agent, Rich Paul or whatever his name is. And I'm sure there'll be other people there Saturday night. So that should be a fun party too. So I went from not really wanting to go to now I'm obviously super excited to head out there and get it going. We got MMA Saturday, lives in Vegas. We got all kinds of stuff going on in Vegas this week, and I can't wait.
Yeah, definitely kind of a bucket list item, I think, going to the Super Bowl. I assume this is the first one you've been to, or have you been going?
Honestly, I wouldn't, like, for a normal person, there's just, you can't go unless it's free on DraftKings. I mean, I couldn't, there's no way I would go. There's no way I'm paying $7,000 to sit in the upper deck. There's just, and that's one ticket. You go with someone, I mean, there's no way. There's just no way. So that's the good part about getting it for free and stuff, because it's something that you just wouldn't do.
Yep. I did see you looking at next year's Onyx prizes, and you were considering taking the best value
I can't
e-bike.
pick again. What is it?
You're going to take the e-bike, Big T? I saw you saying that.
Dude, I legitimately don't know what to pick. Like, it's the same issue as last year. I can't. The e-bike looks like the best value.
Don't you have to pick today? Is today the last day?
I mean, I don't think they're like super strict with that, but
I don't know. I would double check, because I think I was talking with Rubio and he said this might be the last day. So
I could see Rubio gets a little nervous though. I could see him getting a little nervous.
Yeah, I could. He
might take away my prizes. And come on, Rubio.
But no, I mean, I'm pumped for you to go. I would have picked the Super Bowl, and I thought that was an obvious one at the time, but that was just me. Did they offer it again for you for next year or no?
They changed it big time, I think, because they realized, like I said, I think we like totally screwed them in that deal because it's work. So this next time it's 6 credits, which I don't even have 6. So like it's a higher tier than me this time. And it's only 1 ticket instead of 2.
Oh, wow.
6. So I think they realized that they really messed it up.
Yeah, I don't know anyone who wants to go to the Super Bowl by themselves. Like,
no, they're like, no one's going to pick it. And it's 6 freaking credits. It's like, even Augusta, you can go to the final round of the Masters with 2 for 5 credits. So that's less than the Super Bowl. I'm going to the Masters every day of the week over that.
Yeah.
I think the Masters would be sick. I've always wanted to go to the Masters.
I would change right now, if I could change the Super Bowl for Augusta, I would change it right now for sure.
Yeah. Makes sense. That's enough football talk, at least for now. We do have 7 NBA games to talk about. I will mention at the top of the show, trade deadline is tomorrow, I believe, at 3 Eastern time. We've seen Detroit ship a couple players out, just minor trades so far. And honestly, I don't think it's going to be a huge trade deadline, but we have seen trades in the past after lock, and even during games, we've seen players get traded. So just something to keep in mind for some of these teams that could wheel and deal. We'll kind of mention some of those teams as we go along. There will be more trades that happen, and these teams aren't hesitant to, pull a player mid-game if that's when the trade goes through. So possible we'll see some shenanigans, as we always do in the NBA tonight. And I guess it would just be tonight, and then we'll see trades tomorrow as well. With that, let's get into the first game of the night. Cleveland and Washington. Cleveland favored by 11.5 here. Pretty high, 234 total. These teams, though, relatively healthy at the moment. Looks like Cleveland should have pretty much everybody in there. Hasn't been too healthy this season, but they've got Garland, Mitchell, LeVert, Allen, Mobley, all in there ready to go, which makes them a tough team, Mangone, but also one, that you got to look at a little bit against Washington, who obviously doesn't play any defensive team that we like to target anyway. On the Wizards side, I do think this is a team that could, and definitely should make some deals. Tyus Jones is a player that I think should and probably will get dealt before the trade deadline. I think Poole and Kuzma are going to be kind of stuck on this team. Marvin Bagley is out for this game. And then everybody else should be in there for Washington. Start with you, Sweet Travis. What do you see Cleveland and Washington tonight?
Yeah, clearly Washington is a team that we want to target pretty much every slate. So there will be some Cleveland guys. Let me get Washington out of the way. I'm not excited about Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma, any of these guys. The Tyus Jones take about trading him. I heard the Magic or someone that could be interested in him. I know they're looking for a guard. So you could see one of these guys trade. If you did, it probably would be a Tyus Jones. But I'm not super excited to play Tyus Jones against Cleveland. And pretty much any of these Washington guys. They're just not exciting options on this slate. On the Cleveland side of the ball, there's not a lot that I love. Keep in mind, this is a crowded situation. Donovan Mitchell, Allen, Garland, Mobley, LeVert, Struss, all these guys are back. And the price tags aren't amazing on some of these options. You could make a case for someone like Karis LeVert at 5'8" in MME formats. So if you're playing 150, yeah, could Karis LeVert maybe get the extended run in that fourth quarter if they were blowing him out? Sure, that could 1,000% happen. But I am not excited about this Cleveland side. The only guy that I'm really kind of having interest in is if you wanted Donovan Mitchell as a contrarian spend-up option, he could easily have a monster game. Just the one thing to worry about with someone like Mitchell is what if you don't get that fourth quarter run? If you do get it, you could have one of those new games. But for me, in my single entry 3 max up, I just like other spends on this slate. Another thing I'll mention is the Evan Mobley minutes restriction. I know that has gone up slightly. Last game we saw him go from 22, 24 now to 28 minutes. That restriction's not lifted where he's going to play like 34, 36 minutes, but it's enough minutes to kind of cut into some of these other players where I think for the most part, unless it's like going to a Mitchell or a LeVert in MME formats, I'm staying away from this game for the most part.
Yeah, I'm with you. Not the most exciting of games. We do have an undivided slate. So there are 2 games that start, 2.5 hours after the other 5 on the 7-game slate. So that does make it interesting, and that does make me less likely to kind of lock in questionable values in this first game of the night. What about you, Big T? What do you see Cleveland and Washington?
Yeah, it's so tilting too because I've just loved these 5-game slates where they cut it off at 8 or 8:30 or even 9. Why do they go back and forth? I know tonight's the big 888 on DraftKings $1 million prize pool, but why can't it just be the 5 games that start at 7 and 7:30? I don't understand why they have to do that with the 10 o'clock. So how do you guys feel about that?
I generally like when they split it up. I think they don't do it if there's too few games, but I think this is kind of right on the edge where they would do it or not. But yeah, with 2.5 hours between the last 2 games and the rest of them, it makes sense to do it. And also, I just think it is a better customer experience where you have choices, right? You can watch basketball all night and play the late slate. You can do it that way, or you can be done after half an hour, right? And go about your night. So I like when you get the option to do either one.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about it. What you just said, you got good contests late. Maybe you want to go to dinner or something, or early in the night. You come back, you got the late slate or the late showdown other nights, and it just makes it so much better. I mean, even for me, like we're going to the race tonight. It's the big 888, so I want to have some entries in it, and everything's at 7 to 7:30, which is perfect. But then you got to pay attention 2.5 hours later, and I just hate it. They're on the right step to do it. And I think I think they would have kept it 5 games if it wasn't for this 888. And I just hate that they let it impact it. But
I agree, Tony. I think they did it because of the 888. I truly think that. And I think that's okay because of that. I think having it here and there, if you have a big contest, I'm happy with adding the 2. I think that just makes sense. But I'm with you. I love the optionality. I think it's good for a user experience. Obviously, people like us, we're playing every single day. We're providing content for you guys. So I'm playing the main pretty much every single day. But if I was someone that wasn't, I would definitely, if I had something to do maybe early in the day, like let's say I had a kid and I had to coach their game, I would skip the main and I would go ahead and go over to the late stuff, right? I just think it makes sense from a user perspective. I know we are more of an anomaly, the three of us, but I think it's better for that. For the 888s, though, I think you add those games, Tony. I think it makes
for what though? What does it do? Like what? Why?
I prefer 7 games than 5 games. I think it's better for the spread out ownership and everything. But I understand. Is there that big of a difference between the 7 and 5 games?
Just because I always do way better at shorter slates too, so I don't mind like the bigger the slate, the more I hate it. So like even if it was 3 or 4, I love it because you can just dial in stuff. But it just goes to show you too, and it's hard for DraftKings because everyone has different opinions too, and we've talked about it where late swap is like 1,000,000% better for the JBCs and the 150 players that are going to optimize every half hour. But the casual player also thinks they want late swap because they don't know better. They don't realize that they only see when they get screwed with the late scratch. They don't realize that these pros, these top players, are just fully optimizing every half hour on them, and they just don't comprehend that part. But it just shows you that there's a lot of options, though. People have different opinions and stuff. So, but as far as this game, I mean, Washington's always one of the best teams to target. But I agree a lot with what DC was saying, where it's tough because they get guys back like Mobley, and you look at Mobley, he's played, 3 games since he's come back, 21 minutes, 22 minutes, 24 minutes. The last 2 games were against terrible teams too, Detroit and the Spurs, 2 of the worst. But, man, he went 11 for 15, 10 boards, 28 points, 48 fantasy in 24 minutes. And he feels just a tad sneaky to me in this spot at 7,100 against Washington, where if he somehow was to get another little boost in minutes, even up to 29, maybe say 29 range, which I think is reasonable. I mean, he could smash this price point at 7,100 against Washington. They're just a bad defense. Everyone crushes on them. And I think it's there, but I'm not playing Levert. I mean, Mobley is always in play no matter what, especially against Washington. Jared Allen, even though Mobley's back, I like Jared Allen less. I guess my issue is, I mean, he's going to be a little bit higher owned. Is he really that much better of a play than Mobley? I don't know. They're in a similar spot. I guess it comes down to ownership, but I like Mobley a little bit more just because I feel like they tried to get him going, get his legs back, stuff like that. But those are the 3 for me with Cleveland, the 3 good guys. And then Washington, I mean, on a slate like this where you got a bunch of different plays and stuff, looking at the prices, nothing sticks out for me. I mean, you could play a guy like Kuzma, some of these mid-tier guys, Denny, Tyus, Gafford. They're in play, but on a slate like this, I just don't go there. So I'm not going to have Washington against Cleveland. Not to mention Cleveland's one of the better teams. I mean, they're like 15-1 or something their last 16 games. They're playing great ball. With Mobley back, they're going to be way better on defense like they've shown in the past. No reason to play Washington for me.
I will say one interesting thing about Mobley. So he's been back for over a week now, obviously playing super well. There hasn't been any setback. I mean, this is his 5th game back. It's like day 9 or 10. I mean, he should be pretty much a full go, and they won via blowout in the last game. I think he would have come back in for one more 3 or 4 minute rotation, which would have put him at, 32-ish minutes. So I think there's a chance that there is no more minutes restriction at all on Mobley. And if it's a close game and he's playing well, I wouldn't be shocked if he played 33, 34, even 35 minutes in this one. I'm not saying that's the most likely thing, but he's healthy. He's dominating. And if they need him, I don't see why there's any reason why he couldn't go out there and give him a full workload of minutes. So I do think Mobley is the sneakiest play in this game. And
hard part for this game is if they can keep it close because they're so bad. They could easily just get pounded again.
Yeah, that's one thing. Okay, I guess people saying he's limited to 28 minutes that game. Yeah, I mean,
again, though, I think your point is more accurate. That people always go with that like it's concrete, though.
Yeah,
the coach said that it's some minutes limit. I've seen it a bunch of times where the guy just goes and just keeps running.
It's not like the coach doesn't get arrested if he plays in 33 minutes. It's like it could happen.
And you get a feel for it. Like if you're looking out there and he looks fresh and like things look good, like are we really just pulling him out because of some imaginary minutes? What's the difference between 28 and 31? I mean,
exactly.
Really?
I will say if he's playing that well to like earn more minutes, like if Mobley's going off, I would think that Cleveland is kind of dominating this game. So
you really struggle to see this Washington team play them close. Like you really struggle to see it.
Especially given that I do think they're going to make some trades. It just seems like Washington is a team that could just punt it to the All-Star break, right? I mean, they've been punting it all year long. Wouldn't be surprised if they're kind of checked out, especially the day before the trade deadline. But we'll move on. That's a lot of talk on the first game of the night. The other game locking in this early window is Toronto and the Charlotte Hornets. Another two teams. We've obviously seen big trades from Toronto. Wouldn't be shocked given how active they've been in the trade market, forever, it seems like. If they made more deals, I don't think anything's imminent there. And I'm not sure what Charlotte might be doing. I think Gordon Hayward, who might make his return tonight, he's questionable to play. My guess is he plays a very limited amount of minutes in this one, proves that he's healthy, and then maybe gets traded tonight or tomorrow. Again, just speculation on my part. LaMelo Ball does remain out. Kyle Lowry out. He's going to be traded as well. And then Cody Martin, also questionable for Charlotte. We've seen my guy, Brandon Miller, absolutely crushing it. Play of the day on Monday, came through in a big way. I think he could do it again. I really, really like what I see from Brandon Miller. Big T, interested to get your thoughts on him just as a player. I've certainly been impressed watching him go at it. And then looks like Toronto should be healthy for this one. RJ Barrett has been out. He'll be back in there. Looks like Gary Trent, he's probable too. So, Toronto should be close to full health in this game. We'll start with you on this one, Big T. What do you see, Toronto and Charlotte?
Yeah, first of all, starting with Toronto, I mean, Charlotte is one of the best matchups in basketball, obviously, similar to Washington. They just don't play defense. They don't have rim protection. It's just a dream matchup for them, and they're just a bad team. So I think these Toronto guys are not going to be traded too, like the guys they just traded for quickly. Barrett, obviously Scotty Barnes isn't getting traded. I doubt Podol will get traded. So these guys are safe. Some of the guys that could get traded are some of the other guys on their team, some of the lesser guys, the Trents and guys like that. But I love these four. I mean, Quickly, Barrett, especially Quickly and Barrett, the two that came in. I mean, Quickly is going to dust this team in there. I love it. And Podol's so cheap at $5,900. I think he's rock solid too. So I love the Charlotte side. I feel very good about them. Even Scotty Barnes, I mean, he just played – four? I don't know. Did it go 2 overtimes? I think it went 2 overtimes because I was sweating OKC that night. But 48 minutes, even if it was 2 overtimes, it just shows that he's got a bunch of minutes. And then Charlotte, we've been talking about it a lot on the premium show, but he's a number 2 pick in the draft. He didn't really have it going early, but man, when a guy turns it on like this, Brandon Miller's been amazing. And like you said, play your day the other day. Toronto's by no means a good defensive team. Scotty Barnes is one of the best defenders, is the only issue at all. I think he'll be on Brandon Miller. That is a pretty tough sledding matchup for Brandon Miller. But I think he's, dare I say, somewhat matchup proof, even though he's young. He's still going to have some bad games here and there. But he's got all the talent in the world. And Charlotte's going to make some trades too, you would assume. Brandon Miller's not going to be one of them. He was the number 2 pick in the draft. They're not trading this guy. So I think they showcase him. He's definitely in the mix for me. PJ Washington's pretty cheap. PJ Washington might be one of the boomer bust, most boomer bust players in the league. Like he'll have games where he gets 13 fantasy points, and then he'll have games where he gets 50. It's just crazy the swings that he has. But he's 5,700, and I mean, who's going to guard him from Toronto? Besides Scotty Barnes, they don't have any defenders. And I think Scotty will be on Brandon Miller. So PJ Washington might have a sneaky little spot. And Miles Bridges, my worry about Bridges, he could be a guy that I could see getting traded. Just in my head, it makes sense to see him go somewhere. I haven't heard any rumors and honestly haven't looked that close. But just in my head, it feels like he'd be a guy that could, like if I heard the Lakers or somebody traded for Miles Bridges, I wouldn't be like stunned. I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. So for me, I love the Toronto side. I like Brandon Miller, PJ Washington, somewhat sneaky. Even Miles Bridges is in play, even with the trade, like having that in my head. That's where I'm at here, though. I like this game, though. I think it's a good game.
Yeah, and we know, I mean, most of NBA DFS at this point is kind of projection driven, but I do think there's something to be said for watching the games. Like Brandon Miller, if you've watched these games, part of the reason I liked him is you can just see the confidence oozing from him, right? Where he's not going to –
him and Kuminga, right? Like the two that you can just see skyrocketing.
Yep. A change in just how they're playing, how their teammates are playing around him. And yes, he could go cold from the field. He could have a bad game. But, like, I guarantee you right now, Brandon Miller is, like, excited to come out there and do it again. You know what I mean? That's the plan for Charlotte tonight. So I know the price is up again, 7,200 to get it with the matchup. But, I mean, 3 straight 50 burgers at 7,200 now. Like, I think he's certainly capable. And he's, like, shooting shots, Mangone, that like step back threes, right? Like 3 or 4 of these shots a game that can't really stop a guy from doing them if they've got the skill to get those shots off, especially when you're, what is he, 6'9", 6'10"? Like he's just –
it's like when Dunkel was hitting those bankers on you, those lefty bankers. There's nothing you can do about those lefty bankers.
Yeah, man, I love watching that guy play. So I'm going to try to stay on board the Brandon Miller train. And he was somewhat high owned, but I mean like 25%. I think it was a 5-game slate on Monday. Wasn't bad at all compared to what I thought it should have been. Let's go to you, Travis. What do you see, Toronto and Charlotte here?
Yeah, the way Big T just stroked up Brandon Miller, that's what I want to hear him say when I beat Mikey's ass. He says, I've seen the improvement in Mangone. That's what I want to hear, Tony. If not,
you got a lot. I mean, you got to get revenge this year. I know that. When he sat there, first of all, those of you that don't know Mikey, when he is the fattest little dude I've ever seen. His belly was so far out. He stood in the middle of the paint and just served pipe.
We got Snyder in chat. I get no credit for getting almost like literally like killed by Snyder when he undercut.
No, you got credit for that one.
I was exhausted for that.
I put hard-earned money on you beating the fattest dude at RPS, and you couldn't get it done for me.
To be fair, I got it back for you in ping pong almost. I got you most of the way there.
You did, thanks to DC.
The guy across the way, but we'll see how ping pong goes.
Let me say this. The ping pong matchup, not like the basketball matchup. The ping pong matchup, that was I know I was in it. I'm biased, but like
no, I wasn't in it. I'll give DC credit. He put up a good fight. I was impressed. He would stare me down. Or was it Mangone that stared me down? One of you two stared me down each time. I think it was Mangone actually. Would just stare me down every shot. Or it could have been DC. It might have been you, DC. Were you staring me down?
That might have been. There's now we got less than a month before the ping pong round 2 resumes. So I'm
that house is freaking sweet.
Sorry to derail us, but DC, this will get you excited. JBC thinks he can beat me in ping pong, so I think you're probably excited to slide in and get some ping pong bucks there.
JBC's not beating either one of you at ping pong.
JBC's got some deep pockets. I mean, maybe might be getting some cheddar here. I like the sound.
I'm just saying that might be a competition. I wanted to give you a heads up that hey, we should.
You guys are whooping him in ping pong.
Correct, but I know I derailed the show. Let me dive into the Toronto and the Charlotte side of the ball. I do like this game. Another note that Big T mentioned Bridges could be traded, and like I'm not trying to like speculate and not play guys that could be traded, but there are talks of him going to the Suns. As crazy as that one sounds, unless Charlotte just wants to give him up for nothing, I don't think that'll happen. There's like the Dallas
how does a team like the Suns get a guy like Bridges without giving up one of their good guys?
I think it's one of those things where Bridges is like, I want to go to the Suns, and like he's trying to.
I also want to go to the Suns. Can they sign? Can they get me to the Suns?
Yep, exactly. I want to date Dua Lipa, but that's not happening anytime soon. So it's probably not happening. But he's rumored to go somewhere, so that's possible. I do like some of these other Toronto options. I agree 1,000% with what Big T said. Scotty Barnes, quickly, Barrett, and even Jakob Poeltl. I think they're keeping all 4 of those guys. Now, if there was an enticing deal, I think they would throw in Poeltl, but I think Barrett, quickly, and Barnes are pretty locked in with that team. The other guys definitely could be traded. So that is something to think about if you want with your lineups. You don't have to, though. Charlotte side of the ball, Brandon Miller at 7-2. I still think he's a really good forward play that you want to consider right now. I played worse plays at that price tag. So yeah, I think Brandon Miller, not a bad option. I don't love PJ Washington, especially with a Gordon Hayward back and some of these other fringe options. We know Charlotte goes deeper into their bench than you might think. Like when you look at the team, you're like, there's no way they're going to play like some of these clowns minutes, but they do, right? Randomly, Nick Mensa gets minutes. I think Charlotte, for the most part, unless it's like Brandon Miller, I know Nick Richards is popping a little bit. I'm not buying him. I'd rather play Jakob Poeltl for like, $400 more. And Scotty Barnes, he is someone that's not projecting amazing. I know he's not going to have a lot of ownership, but Charlotte doesn't have a great rim protection. And that is kind of like, if you had to pick a team, where should Scotty Barnes thrive? It's those up and down games with no defense being played, where there's no rim protection. It's not a bad spot for Scotty Barnes. I've gone back and forth. I think like someone like De'Aaron Fox, who we'll get to later, is better, but I don't think he's a bad play. And also, the next team we're getting to is a good segue. We did get news, I don't know if you saw it, DC, that Drew Holiday is now out. That was one piece of news that kind of came by. We also just got news. It looks like the chat said that Gordon Hayward is now out and Cody Martin is in, along with Frank Ntilikina out. But some of the reason I might not like this game a little bit is because that Drew Holiday news did just open up, and that is going to make things interesting on the Celtics side of the ball because they're playing the Atlanta Hawks. And frankly, the Atlanta Hawks, they're a team that we target all the time. And the good news is they keep games competitive more than a team like the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, absolutely. Seeing, Hayward out, Martin in. I'm glad one of them is in because I do think that will hold Miller's ownership down a little bit. And I'm seeing Miller projected like 5% ownership tonight, which, sign me up for that for a guy who I think's got a pretty decent shot at 50 fantasy points. Once again, probably, I know a lot of chat has been on Miller as well. Probably going to be riding that train again tonight. Let's get to the game.
I got one note too, just about the site, just because I wanted to bring it up because the first two games. So those of you that aren't Run Pure members, AP or someone like AP puts up a flow chart, kind of like I did for football each day. And amazingly, I just pulled it up while you guys were talking. A lot of these plays we like in the first two games are great flowchart plays, which makes it nice. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's the best shooting guard of the night. Brandon Miller's the best small forward of the night. They both have great matchups there. And then Poeltl and Jared Allen and Mobley all check the boxes too. We talked about all those guys, and I know I get made fun of a lot for Big T 777, blah, blah, blah. But if you got a slate like this and all the plays, like Brandon Miller's projected under 5% owned, he's a great flowchart play. He's early. He's been hot. He kind of checks every box for me. So, I mean, I know you don't always have to fire everyone in there. In Boston, where we just got a little extra value, is at 7:30 as well. So just because there's the 10 o'clock games doesn't mean you have to wait for that. I mean, you can just get guys in early. And as we get to the later games, you can do the K-Phallic too. And maybe you just ignore some of the early news and go with late guys on a team if you got three teams. JSU always does that great too, where maybe he's got one early team, one late team, and then one where it mixes and matches a little bit. There's a lot of value in that.
Absolutely. We'll see how all that news shakes out. But next one to talk about, we did already get some of the news. Drew Holiday going to be out for Boston against Atlanta. Boston big favorites in this one, favored by looks like 12 or so at the moment, 244 total, which I believe is the highest total of the entire slate. Looks like everybody else should be in there for Boston. They did just trade for Xavier Tillman. He's obviously not going to be available yet. And then the big news on the Hawks side, DeJounte Murray is questionable to play with lower back tightness. I think that is on the trade block. I think Murray wants to be moved, and I think the Hawks want to move him. I do expect DeJounte Murray to move teams tonight or tomorrow before the trade deadline. He could be in there tonight. Like, it's not impossible, but I'm kind of leaning toward he sits. I think the line in this game leans that way. And, I mean, that's a big piece, right? Not only does it open up value on the Atlanta side, it makes the matchup even better for Boston, right? DeJounte Murray, in my opinion, the Hawks' best defender. Just a great spot for Boston, Big T. given that, Murray might sit, and then, of course, the bigger piece of news there, Drew Holiday is out in one of the very best matchups against Atlanta that you can get. Got to look, I think, pretty hard at pretty much all the guys that are going to be out there for Boston tonight. Your thoughts here on Boston and Atlanta Hawks?
Yeah, you bring up great points. And Atlanta is one of the teams I'm worried about most as far as the last night. I mean, we've seen this. We've all three played DFS for 10 plus years now. It feels like, I don't know, somewhere around 10 years. And over the years, we've seen guys get traded. They're in the lineup. J.R. Smith sticks off in my head one of those years. A bunch of other times, though, where even if DeJounte's in, doesn't mean he's playing the whole game or something. Like, you just never know with these guys on trade night. So for me, especially in a tough spot in Boston, there's just no way I'm going to Atlanta, guys. I mean, maybe if DeJounte or some guys got traded before that, like earlier in the night, and we get some lineup where we know it's shorthanded, then maybe. But as long as it stands right now with nothing done, I'm not playing Atlanta for sure in Boston. And then Boston with Drew Holiday out, you got some of the best plays of the slate. You got Tatum, Porzingis, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, all the four like anchors to the team. All are underpriced. Even Tatum, who hasn't been incredible this year, it's against Atlanta. They don't play any defense. I mean, these plays are very, very good tonight. Porzingis 7,500 is a great play. Derek White probably gets the biggest boost of anyone, I would think, with Drew Holiday out. 6,500. I love that. I love that play. Peyton Pritchard obviously gets a boost off the bench. 3,500. He has to be one of the better value plays for me on the night at that price. Sam Hauser, if you think the game blows out, is cheap. O'Shea Brissett, Luke Cornett. All these guys are in play against Atlanta. And even like Luke Cornett, I think he could play in a close game and a blowout. So I think you can go here for value too. I love Boston tonight.
Hard not to like Boston. I think you got to get at least some exposure to Boston. They're going to have like at least one of their stars, White, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown is going to get there. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if two of them did. Hawks.
I wouldn't be surprised if you see Fire next to like all those starters.
Yep. Porzingis, I mean, 7,500 for him. Hawks, one of the very worst teams against centers, now missing Capella. I think Porzingis is in for a big, big night in this one. Love him at 7,500. Might go a little bit overlooked just because he's on the opposite side of the position spectrum that Drew Holiday is, obviously. So, like, the minutes aren't projected any higher, but I think the usage looks even better. But, yeah, Mangone, talk to us about Boston. Atlanta, obviously a pretty juicy game here, especially on the Boston side.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument, like last night with the Rockets were like the clear premier spot, and you can make a little bit of a case that like the Celtics are coming more of a premier team today. Maybe if you played like 4 Rockets, did you win GPPs? Probably not, but did you cash pretty well? Probably, right? Like you could make that argument, like Big T talks about sometimes. There's nothing wrong with 2 or 3xing your money, and if you want to just get overweight on some of these Celtics, I don't totally hate that. One of the issues that you do run into with this Celtics team is they are pricey. A lot of the guys you want to play, they have expensive tags to them. There are not a lot of values. Derek White is 6'5". I think Derek White is a phenomenal play. I hope people don't play him. I hope I'm playing him by myself. I think he's a really good play. I also think based on the guard situation, and with the Boston Celtics, they can move guys around to different positions. For instance, I do think Sam Hauser can play shooting guard at times, but I think against this Atlanta team, he has to play more forward. I don't think it makes as much sense with him there. So I think this is a really good spot for a Peyton Pritchard to emerge as a value. Now, I don't know what any projections have done with it. I've been on the show. I haven't looked at what anyone's doing, but naturally, I would want to bump Peyton Pritchard's projections. I think Peyton Pritchard is going to be an interesting value at 3.5K. We're already considering Trey Lyles on this slate as a value because it helps makes things work. So why wouldn't we look at someone like Peyton Pritchard? Also, let's say the game happens to blow out. No problem. Peyton Pritchard is going to crush in that blowout time. He also might be part of it because of how well he would have to play in that second quarter run where he gets that rotation. So Peyton Pritchard and Derek White are definitely on my radar. I like Jaylen Brown. I like Jason Tatum. Keep in mind they are a little bit pricier. I like Porzingis a little bit more than those guys. It just depends if I have the value to make that work. I think all 5 of those guys are in the conversation. I do know it's an Al Horford revenge game. I'm not that excited about Al Horford. I think he's okay at 5.1K. Another thing to note with the center position in general, it does feel like a slate where a lot of people are spending up at the center spot. They're spending on Sabonis or Wembanyama, who I know you can put it forward, but it feels like a lot of your money is getting allocated in that way. And maybe Horford's like a differentiation play in that range. So I think all these Celtics are in the conversation. Another thing to keep in mind with Jrue Holiday being out, maybe there's like maybe they do mess around with some starting lineup stuff. You never know. Maybe someone else happens to get rolled out in the next hour. So keep that in mind with some of these like cheap values that could emerge. But overall, I think the Boston Celtics are a good team that we want to get exposure to. The Atlanta Hawks side of the ball, a good question is, what do we do with Okongwu? Because Okongwu at 5'7", it does feel expensive. His projection is not popping as much, but I could make the argument that if Okongwu had 36 DK points the other day, he might pop more. Projections might like him a little bit more. And this is a really nice role for him. He is going to play 35-plus minutes a night, as long as he doesn't get in any type of foul trouble. So he is definitely in the conversation. Another really interesting contrarian pivot is a Bruno Fernando. I actually happened to play him the other day at 3.2K. And with that 17.5K tag that he put up, if you're looking for an extreme punt that's off the board MME, he's going to play some of the minutes. So those 2 guys are definitely interesting centers that you can look at. Jalen Johnson at 7.4. I just think he's overpriced for this matchup. And there's other forwards that I already like a lot. We talked about Brandon Miller. We're going to discuss Tobias Harris. I know I'm really going to like him today. We got Jonathan Kuminga. We haven't got to him, but I'll like him. I just think he's going to just fall out of favor for me. So I'm not super excited about him. And some of these forwards are a little more crowded. Sadiq Bey is back. DeAndre Hunter. It's just a little bit more of a crowded situation. Now, if DeJounte Murray happened to get ruled out, he is questionable. He has been talked about being on the trade block. I also the other day said that Alex Caruso was going to be out, and I definitively thought that, and then he didn't, right? So I'm not going to play the I know who's sitting based on trade rumors and all that bullshit because I got it all wrong yesterday. I'm just going to let the chips fall and then dive in and make the changes based on that. So for me, I want to see what happens with DeJounte Murray. But keep in mind, if DeJounte Murray sits, that'll be a bump for someone like Bogdanovich and some of these other wing options. And you could make a case that would make Trae Young a pretty interesting contrarian option. And I would argue with Jrue Holiday out, I know Derek White's a good defender, but maybe Trae Young is a better play than a Donovan Mitchell in that 9K range as a guard spend that people will not be on. So this is a very enticing game, but we do not have all the news. Some of my favorite plays are Pritchard and Derek White. And as Derek Duffy is asking in the chat, can you play them both together? You certainly can. One thing I think Big T really likes about these shorter slates, and it's not a shorter slate, it's only 7, but if 4 of these games blow out, some of these guys just aren't on the winning teams. And when you condense on a couple plays on a game, and maybe like Big T said, JSU sometimes plays all early guys, or then they play all late guys. When you do that, if you get the games right that don't blow out, you just get the full rotation and runs and minutes from players, and that is super valuable at times. And that's a way to just be contrarian with still playing good plays. I talk about this a lot. You don't have to find the 2% guy, but if you fade the 50% guy that is in a game that maybe blows out and he doesn't get his full run and rotation, that's a big deal. That matters because 50% of the field likely can't win a tournament. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, a couple things from me before we move on. One, I always play Peyton Pritchard whenever White or Holiday is out. Dude comes through like every single time in this scenario.
It's like a print. It prints every time, it feels like.
It's seriously, he gets like 27 fantasy points. He's 35, and his floor is high too, right? He never really kills you. So I'm in on the Peyton Pritchard thing. And the second thing I'll mention, if DeJounte Murray sits, which I do think there's a good chance he does, by far, Boston, a very good defensive team, they do allow a ton of three-pointers against. They defend the rim and the paint very well. I think they've allowed the second most three-pointers on the year. If Murray is out, I mean, I think Trae Young's got almost no choice but to launch from deep. Obviously, his matchup gets a little bit better with no Jrue Holiday on the other side as well. So definitely interested in Trae Young if Murray sits. And if you're playing Trae Young, you might as well kind of pair him up with, I don't know, a Johnson or an Okongwu, because they're going to have a couple of their starters have big games to hang in with Boston. So potential game stack there. kind of things break right with the DeJounte news. All right, we'll move on to the next game of the night, Golden State and Philadelphia, another game with significant news to talk about. Golden State favored by 5 in this one, 235 total. Obviously, Philadelphia at home. Of course, Joel Embiid going to be out for a while, hopefully not the rest of the season. They're already missing DeAnthony Melton. He's out. Daniel House is questionable. And then the biggest news, Tyrese Maxey questionable, midday downgrade. He missed shoot around. I think the likely thing is that Tyrese Maxey probably misses this game. I think the line kind of indicates that as well, which obviously, I mean, no Maxey. If it's no Maxey, no Embiid, no Melton, tons of opportunity for the remaining 76ers guys. Golden State playing much better ball. We talked about Kuminga has really emerged and kind of perhaps changed the trajectory a little bit of Golden State's season. He's been awesome, I think, in 6 of the last 7 games. Draymond Green is questionable, which could open up more minutes opportunity for a guy like Kuminga. Certainly news to watch there. That's really the only piece of news on the Warrior side of the ball that we're waiting on. Another pretty interesting game here, Big T. Obviously, a lot depends on the Maxey and to a lesser extent Draymond news. Talk to us, Golden State, Philadelphia.
Yeah, this is the big news. I'm glad this one's at 7:30 and not 10 because this one really shapes a lot of the slate. Like you guys said, if like DC said, if Maxey sits, man, it just opens up everybody, the whole team, because Golden State doesn't play defense like they used to. I mean, Draymond is their best defender still, and Kuminga is their best defender actually.
I mean, they have their backcourt is Curry, Clay, and Pop, right? They can't play. They can't defend guards. They
can't play any defense either. Yeah. Like, I can't think of a worse 3-man defense.
Exactly.
And Draymond's a really good defender, but he's still not big though. Like, he's undersized, and Kuminga's not that big. He's a great defender, but so they can't erase shots as much at the rim like a whoever, even like Jokic and these bigger bodies at the rim. Even though Jokic's not like an incredible defender, but. So I think Maxey sits too, like you, but the good thing is we should get the info, if not before 7, obviously before 7:30, which goes a long way to make these final decisions. And I think he sits, so I'll just pretend that's the case right now, which bumps Tobias a bunch. I don't know who's going to guard him. I mean, I think this game's close either way. So honestly, once we get all the news, this game's going to be a good low-owned game for me. Tobias, Kelly Oubre, this is a good spot for him. Paul Reed even. I mean, no one's going to play Paul Reed. I think it's a pretty good spot, 6,200. And then you got all these guys that are going to get boost. I mean, Marcus Morris, Mo Bamba. Jaden Springer is kind of a pivot off of Pritchard, or you could play them both and go up to studs. But I love Springer. So you pull him up, 26 minutes, 19, 21. The last 3 games, 2 of the 3 games, he played great, 23 and 27. He had 27 against this same Golden State matchup, 21 minutes. When he gets minutes, he does good. I mean, he was good in college. The price point's great. Even if Maxey's in, I like Springer a little bit against Golden State. But once Maxey's out, I love him. And I can't play Pat Bev at 5,500. I probably don't need to go to like KJ Martin and these guys. But some of the main pieces I love. Toby, Oubre, Springer would be my 3 favorites. The bigs I don't like quite as much. And then the Golden State side, I'm just going to keep playing Kuminga. I don't understand his projection. I say it every single day on the Up to Lock or whatever show I'm on. The dude's playing high 30s minutes. He's crushing, and I see no reason why it would change. He's their young guy. They're leaning on him. Obviously, Curry's still their best guy, but Clay is totally dusted. I mean, Draymond's pretty dusted. I mean, it comes down to Kuminga being basically the second guy to Curry, and he's not priced like it or projected like it. He should be in the 8Ks in my opinion, and he should be projected in the low 40s in my opinion. And you just won't see that. So I'm going to keep playing him. And the good part is DC said it to start the show, but everything's projection based. So Kuminga just can't be owned. He just won't be. So the good part about NBA, you can play a bunch of chalk and Kuminga. And in one way you can do that on SaberSim is just click the lock button on Kuminga, see what it gives you, and then you'll get all the chalk to randomly fill in with it. And I love to build like that. So I like this game a bunch, but we got to wait for some news.
You can join me on the $7,200 up-and-comer team with Mr. Miller, Mr. Kuminga. Slide those two guys in there.
With you. We're
Under
together.
projected, 5% each. Why not? I'll roll the dice with those two guys any day of the week, especially on this Wednesday. Let's go to you, Mangone. I think Big T made a ton of good points. I'm with him on Kuminga. I mean, Philadelphia gets really, really interesting if Maxey does sit. I know Big T said he couldn't play Beverly at 5,500. I'm looking at some of the numbers with these guys off the court. I think Beverly, I know he's a limited player, but I think he almost has to have a big role in this offense in a great matchup against a team that allows steals. I mean, Golden State's sloppy with the basketball. I'm interested in Beverly at 5,500 only, of course, if Maxey sits. But Springer, man, he looks like an awesome play if Maxey's out. Really, really interesting game here. Go ahead, Mangone. Golden State, Philadelphia.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of Big T's points. Another thing to note, like Embiid is out for 6 to 8 weeks. This team,
Embiid's done for the year. Yeah, I mean, you could count on it.
Okay, yeah, I agree, but they said 6 to 8 weeks. The point I'm getting at, though, Big T, is like their team has to change, right? Like their identity, and they have to like do a little bit. If they want to survive, like for instance, they're the 4 seed right now. I think, dude, they could easily fall. I looked at the standings the other day. Orlando is at 7. Miami is at 8. Philadelphia could easily fall and be stuck in the play-in game. It's just the facts. They could easily fall to that spot, and they need to start playing Paul Reed. They need maybe Jaden Springer to develop a role. They need, like, if Patrick Beverly's a starter, he might start playing 35 to 40 minutes a night, especially if Maxey is out. It's Nick Nurse. So first of all, whoever is a starter will play a lot of minutes. That's how Nick Nurse does it. It's pretty simple. Tyrese Maxey missed shoot around. So if we had to guess, Tyrese Maxey is likely out. We don't know, but that's just the standard thing you would say. So if he is out, you're going to have some opportunities here with a lot of these plays. Jaden Springer could be an intriguing option for sure. Kelly Oubre, who hasn't been talked up that much, he is going to get a lot of minutes here now. He's going to have to become more of a bigger piece in this offense. Another thing that I've talked about all year on these shows, Tobias Harris is a great play in this spot. I think you could argue Tobias Harris is an 8.8K player in this offense right now, the way it is designed. Do we have anything on Paul Reed's minutes? Does he still have a minutes restriction, DC? I think that's one thing. I don't know if you said, but I wanted to ask. So I think it
I haven't seen. I mean, he was just sick. I would assume he's good to go by now. Another day, 2 days later. Again, I haven't seen it, but that would be my assumption.
Yeah, the DK thing says he's feeling a lot better. So he still is 6'2", and like I could make an argument like at 6'2", especially in a matchup against probably Draymond Green. That kind of veteran can really have problems for someone like Paul Reed. I'm not dying to get the Paul Reed. I don't think he's a bad tournament play.
I mean, he has such high bust potential for that price tag. Yeah. I don't play much Paul Reed, but
but he won't have a lot of ownership. That's kind of the counter. Yeah. But I'm with you. I don't think it's a Paul Reed spot. Like, I'd rather play Jakob Poeltl against Charlotte, who's a flow chart play today, like who's just a little bit cheaper. So yeah, I think Philadelphia has opportunity. Love Tobias Harris. If Maxey's in, it'll be a contrarian good spend that you could get to for sure. But a lot of these guards could open up with some value. Kelly Oubre could see a nice role. We just need to know who's in and out. Golden State side of the ball, I agree with the Kuminga take that Big T talked about. I don't need to touch much on it, but I think he's a great player. I've been playing him. I'll continue to consider him. Draymond Green at 6'3". Do not ignore his upside. I mean, he has a lot of upside still at this price. I think he could definitely be a pretty interesting option. So I don't hate him in tournaments. I think he's a good MME contrarian play. Klay Thompson is that guy that as the season goes on, we see this every single year. We see 5.5K for Klay Thompson. That feels too cheap. Projections are using analysis from the past 3 years. I'm sorry. That data is not correct right now. I am out on Klay Thompson, especially because I'm sure he'll get some type of ownership because projections just push him and push him and push him. Now, if you told me Klay Thompson was 2%, sure, I can make a case for it, but he's not. He's going to have ownership. I think he's a bad play. I'd rather play Podziemski for $500 more. I just think he's a way better play here. And then Steph Curry at 9.5. Like, if you told me him or Maxey, I kind of lean on just playing Curry, as crazy as it sounds, just because I know what his upside is, and he's going to be very low owned in this spot. So Also, someone in the chat says Draymond's going to sit. Dude, listen, I sat on the show yesterday and I said who was going to play and who wasn't, and I was wrong. I'm just going to let the news shake out. We're going to know in time. I don't need to predict this news, so I'll know the information and we'll go from there. If Draymond sits, though, you're going to have to like a lot of different options. I mean, that's obviously something that we'll have broken down on the Up the Lock show. That's one reason to be a member over at Run Pure Sports. We got some of the best of the business doing it, right? We got guys like JBC who win a shit ton of money every single day playing this thing. They go to live finals. We got JSU, one of the best at doing single entry 3 max stuff. So I'll leave it to the Up the Lock guys. I'll be listening. Hopefully you guys will be listening too.
Absolutely. We do have one more game in the kind of this early window of games at 7:30. We'll say Patrick Beverley sounds like I might be on a little bit of an island with him. Running the numbers this season with Embiid, Maxey, and DeAnthony Melton all off the court. Decent sample size here, 150 minutes for Beverley. He's had a 25% usage rate and a 34% assist rate. Pretty crazy numbers for Beverley. That's over 40 fantasy points per 36 minutes, which I think he would get if all of those guys were out. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with Beverley. Obviously need Maxey to be out, at least for me, to be interested there. But I will
you
be
need
in
Maxey to be out and him 7 years younger.
What's that?
You need him to take. You need Pat Bev to take 7 years off his life.
Those are this year's numbers, man. He's dominated in this situation. So
how many were with this exact crew?
Melton, Embiid, Maxey out, and Tobias on the court, and he's at like 40 fantasy points per 36. So
how big's the sample though?
150 minutes. So yeah, three full games worth. Yeah, we can disagree. We've just
agreed on a little cheaper. I played Beverly. I bet I honestly played Beverly probably more than almost anyone because I like him, but I like him when he's like 4,500. 5,500.
Yeah, just doubting myself, Mr. Fallick. Beverly has the worst price compared to FanDuel on the entire slate. Beverly's going in the cores. Now, K. Fallick, thank you for confirming.
You're like JSU with that. Whatever the plays get called out, you just bury them in there.
It's 5.5 on DK. Well, guess what, Fallick? You can play him on both sides. There you go. All right. Next game on the slate, Spurs and Miami. Again, the last game kind of in this early window of games. This one looks like two pretty much fully healthy teams and also two teams that I don't really anticipate making trades. I mean, let's be honest. The Spurs could trade anyone outside of Wembanyama. I just don't really think they have anything figured out outside of him. But in terms of what they will do, I don't know what to expect from the Spurs. Miami, I kind of think is mostly set at this point. They made the Rozier deal early, so I do think these teams aren't teams that I would anticipate moves coming tonight. But both fully healthy, relatively low, 227 total. Miami favored by 7.5. I don't have a ton of interest in this game, Big T. Do you see anything from Miami and Spurs that you're looking at?
It's just it's pricing for me where these Miami guys are just pretty cheap. Like Terry Rozier is $6K. He's gone, 5 or 6 games, all in the 30s minutes wise, all in the 30s fantasy wise. I just feel like he's finding his footing a little bit. The Spurs don't play any D, obviously. Caleb Martin's questionable right now, I think, but if he's in, he's 3,800. Same thing. Jimmy Butler, I think, will be somewhat low owned tonight. My issue with Jimmy is I like to play him in big games, not when he's facing the freaking Spurs on a Wednesday night in February. That's not exactly a Jimmy spot, but he is very cheap at 7,600 against the Spurs, and same with Bam at 8K. I think the Heat guys are much better last piece in type plays where, like, if I get to the end of my team and any of these guys are like the guy that pops at the top, I have no like. I think Terry Rozier gets 35 fantasy points tonight. Is that enough? That's kind of where the talk comes in on that. But Bam, Jimmy, like I think Jimmy gets you 40 tonight. I don't think he gets you 50 hardly ever is the issue. But do you want that just solid score? And then I'll flip it to Wembanyama because at 8,800, I mean, the dude has literally got 50, like right at 50, 9 straight games.
I know. It's honestly ridiculous.
Like 48 and 54, though. It's never 65. It's never 35. And his minutes are like the same. So, like, honestly, I don't know if there's a more consistent by minute guy than Wembanyama in the entire NBA. So the question is, do you want 50 for 8,800? That's kind of I think it's a good play. And believe me, if you guaranteed me 50, I probably would just freaking lock him in, but it's no guarantee. I don't know. I like upside in some spots. I do think this game is perfect for fillers, though, because every guy I just talked about, all 5 of those guys, I think are fairly priced. I think they're good values. I definitely wouldn't want to go crazy here, though. So I would even maybe set some rules in Saber, like 2 max heat. And I'm not playing any Spurs besides Wemby. So maybe two max heat, 1, and then you could do it with Wemby, obviously. But I think these plays are solid. I have no issue with any of those guys I just named.
Yeah, I think Big T nailed it, man, going where all of the Heat guys, or most of them anyway, Bam, Butler, Rozier. I mean, even Haka's down at 4,600. Pretty crazy low price tag for him against the Spurs. They all seem like solid plays, just none of the guys that you're really getting in there first. But I'm with Big T. If last guy in type of plays, no problem with any of these guys, just not priority targets, at least for me. What about you, Travis? Spurs and Heat.
Yeah, I haven't beaten this drum for a while. Ever since Pop said he's playing 30 minutes. And then I saw that back-to-back too. I'm just playing Wembanyama right now. He's basically just going to consistently print me. It feels like that 48 to 55. And honestly,
one of these games he's gonna nuke too. It's coming where he drops an 80 hammer. One of these games.
Yeah, one of these games he's going to drop his ball back. And
I know he hasn't shown it, and it's been 50 every game, but you still can't convince me he doesn't have monster upside on any given.
I think it's much more likely he gets 80 than 25.
Yes,
put it that way. Much more likely.
Yes.
I think the floor is amazing, but I think the upside is still there, even though he hasn't shown it.
Yeah. I agree 100% with that take. So
it's just somewhat tough, right? Because 30 minutes, it's tough. I don't care how good you are. It's tough to get 80 in 30 minutes.
Yeah, Another guy's been pretty consistent, and I like his role a bit. He plays with Wembanyama and without him too, which is good, right? Because when he's off the court, there's a lot of usage. It's Devin Vassell at 6'7". I do not think he's a bad upside player. I talk about these mid-range guys that just have pretty big ceilings. I don't hate it. He's on the flow chart, surprisingly. You think about the Miami matchup, and it's not really a amazing matchup typically, but he is on the flow chart. Assuming he probably gets some Tyler Hero defense, I don't know. I think Vassell's not a bad play. I also don't mind Trey Jones. The reason I don't mind Trey Jones is I think Trey Jones has some pretty decent upside at 5.7K. I'll admit, not my favorite matchup. Would I like him in a matchup against Washington or some of these other teams? Yes, of course. But at 5.7, it's not the craziest play. I think MME formats, if I was looking at my pool, I'd be happy with the exposure that I'm getting with him. So I don't think he's a bad play. I did talk up Jimmy Buckets yesterday, and I was very mad because Big T did make fun of me when I talked about Wagner and the Butler stuff a little bit. And, of course, I played Wagner because I didn't have $100 to get to Jimmy Butler. And, of course, Wagner sucked and Jimmy Butler smashed with 50. I still think Butler at 7.6 is just a cheap tag, especially against the Spurs. I do not mind him as an upside play. He's going to have no ownership. I think his role is really good. So I like him way more than a Bam Adebayo here in this spot. Tyler Hero at 6'5". I think I liked him a lot at this price, but I do think the emergence of Terry Rozier has hurt him a bit. And I'm a little more concerned with Hero at that price. Rozier, I don't love. Caleb Martin as a starter, I don't think it's a bad spot for him if he is starting again at 3.8. I don't hate it as a value play. There's other better values like Peyton Pritchard, who we just talked about before, but I don't hate him as a value play. So I don't hate this game. I think Jimmy Butler is my favorite option on the Heat, and maybe Caleb Martin is a value. And then I like Wemby, I like Vassell, and I like Trey Jones. I also don't hate SoCan, but I do think there's a lot more of a downside with him, and he's more of a MME kind of option than rather single entry stuff.
I love when Megamind Memory Mangone comes out. He can remember slates from 2019. He's like, I shouldn't have faded this guy. Big T told me not to, and he put up a big score. It's impressive, Travis, what you can remember.
Yeah. I remember a lot of the things. I can remember
receipts too.
I remember sitting in the live final room with JSU and Big T. I said, I did try not to give him too much advice, but I said, don't stack that early game with Lauri Markkanen and all those losers, and he still stacked it. But I don't know, Tony. I don't like your
got bad mojo. Like we had all good mojo going the whole show, and then you just swoop in like that.
I think you condense too much on games. I want to take a couple players off of yours, and I think you'll be dialed in even better. That's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll admit, has been my best NBA year. I had a great NBA year last year, but hey, the season's not over yet. If I would have said that with NFL, it went great in December, and that made it for the year. So I'm not done.
Good thing about tournaments, it only takes a couple good nights, and you're home free.
It really does. It's like it's brutal battling through. And when you look at your tracker of it, man, there's some rough months. It is not fun, but I'm feeling way more dialed in right now. And I just, Tony, let's not condense fully. Let's just play 3 or 4. But sometimes I've seen you gone 6, and I don't like it. That's just my opinion.
Noted. Clean living, Mangone. It's good for the memory. I can't personally relate. Next game on the slate, we do got 2 more in the late window. A little bit of housekeeping before we get there. Hit the like button. We got a really, really good crew watching on this Wednesday. The likes a little bit hurtful. Get them up. We'll do the plays of the day at the end of the show if you can do that. And fun time of year. We got Super Bowl content up the wazoo coming up for Sunday. Obviously, NBA here in full swing. Golf has been absolutely crushing it at RPS. MMA, we got 3 months in a row, including Mad Lab on the site. All that good stuff over at RPS. We do have promo code RPS15. That will get you 15% off your first weekly or monthly payment. All right, let's get to these last 2 games of the night, the 10 p.m. Eastern time games. First one we'll talk about, Detroit and Sacramento. Sacramento favored by 242 at home here, or not favored by 242. 242 total. They're favored by 13. Detroit looks like they're kind of tearing it down as much as they can to the bare bones pieces of their roster. They traded – who did they trade? Did they trade Burks? I thought I saw
Kevin
that.
Kevin friggin' Knox that's got traded 100 times.
Yeah. Knox just – he's clearly not good. I don't know. People need to –
some guys, there's no way they're ever going to be good. So,
Knox is
he's not ever going to be good.
Agreed. That was clear a while ago, but anyway, Stewart is out for this game. I thought I saw Burks got traded, but I guess I just dreamt that or made it up because I don't think that's actually true at this point. Wouldn't be surprised if he moved though. And then Killian Hayes is also asked for a trade from Detroit. I think Detroit might also ask for a trade back from their draft pick on Killian Hayes, but hey, it goes both ways. And then Cade Cunningham is questionable to play in this game. Due to left injury, knee management. This seems like a game that Detroit, I mean, not to say a lot that they're punting a game, but it's hard to imagine Detroit shows up and puts up a fight in Sacramento for this one. I don't really expect the Kings to make many moves, but obviously don't know that for sure. And then, I mean, what a spot if somehow Detroit keeps it close. I think arguably the best matchup that Sabonis could have. He's at home. Just a smash spot for him against the Pistons. You got to like him at 10.1, especially with what looks like some pretty good value on the slate, Big T. De'Aaron Fox is very cheap at 8,100. I honestly haven't played him very much this year. I think for the most part that's been a decent call, but 8,100 against the Pistons, you can't really ignore that. Malik Monk still cheap. He's very up and down, but definitely upside in this matchup. I think the Sacramento side of this game is pretty interesting. I'm trying to avoid the Detroit side for the most part, but depending on who's in and out, Bogdanovich also questionable. Possible Detroit has some value as well. Obviously not going to get most of this news, most likely, till after all of those other 5 games lock. A little bit of a tricky spot, a little bit of a tricky slate. What's your approach here to Detroit and Sacramento, Big T?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I'm so annoyed that these 2 late games are on the slate is they're just bad games. Like Sacramento versus Detroit sucks because, I mean, they're a huge favorite. Detroit's trying to trade everyone away, or I mean, everyone besides Cade and like maybe some key pieces, but trying to get rid of them. So these Sacramento guys are in really good spots, but does the game stay close enough for them to crush? What do you sacrifice early to let them stay? And I just hate this game because if it stays close at all, these guys are going to crush. Sabonis is going to crush. Monk, Herter, Keegan, one of those guys is going to crush, maybe 2 of them. De'Aaron Fox always has upside no matter what. I'm like you. I haven't played him much this year. He hasn't looked good. But, I mean, the dude just had 60 last week. He could easily have 60 again against Detroit. And I know I'm not going to play him, so I don't love that with the late hammer where, like, maybe you even start good and you're up top and then you see the De'Aaron Fox coming for you. I just don't like that. So, for me, I'm not going to be super high on this game. I do like Sabonis. Fox is okay. I just don't know if I can play Sabonis over like Tatum versus Atlanta. I mean, Donovan Mitchell, some guys like that in the early Wembanyama. I just like those other guys more. I am going to have some Sabonis. I do like the mid-price guys, though, like Monk looks good, Herter, Keegan. But again, with the annoyance in this game, I just don't know which one to ever click out of those three. They're like the same player. They're all wings. They all shoot. They all have either really good games or bad. There's not much consistency. So I don't know. And then Harrison Barnes is cheap. Trey Lyles is 3,200. You literally have to consider Trey Lyles at 3,200. I mean, he's going against Detroit. If it's a close game, he's going to play. If it's a blowout, he's going to play more. And he's so cheap. So you have to consider Trey Lyles. And Detroit, I mean, I'm not playing Detroit on this slate. Unless like we get weird trades and then a lineup that's really weird or something and I play people. I am not planning on playing Detroit guys though.
You're not going to join Mr. Falk on the Marcus Sasser train.
Yeah, I'm going to leave him to Mr. Falk.
We got two members of Falk's core already, Mangone. We got Sasser and we got Cornette from the early game. So K. Falk off to a winning start already. Big T somewhat disagrees with those takes. Travis, your thoughts here, Detroit and Sacramento.
Yeah, we're going a bit overtime, so I don't want to keep going into that. But I'll talk about Detroit. I think Ausar Thompson at 4-4 is not a bad option. They did just get rid of Kevin Knox. How much are they truly going to play Danilo Gallinari? Like, they're not going to play Duren with Wiseman and Muscala. Like, I think Ausar Thompson is a pretty good play that we should consider. Also, Bogdanovich is questionable. Like, if Bogdanovich sits, that'll even open up even more opportunity for someone like him. Keep in mind, they do have a lot of clowns like Rodin and Joe Harris and all these other guys they can mix and match. But I think Ausar Thompson is a good play. I don't mind him. And if Bogdanovich gets ruled out, I would definitely consider playing some of these options. And like Cade Cunningham too is questionable. If he happens to miss, well, if Killian Hayes starts out of nowhere, like, well, you'd have to consider Killian Hayes. Maybe it's a showcase scheme. I think there are.
You can't play Killian Hayes.
If he starts, you can.
I mean, he's like the one that's for sure going to get traded.
But if Cade is out and Killian Hayes is the starter, it could be a showcase game to trade his ass out of here. Like, that could be the case. Also, keep in mind, this game is really late. Am I prioritizing backloading for this? I typically do stuff like that. I am not doing that tonight. I'm not backloading for this news. I don't think it's necessary. They have enough guys they can mix and match. That's probably one reason why Falk might play Sasser, as the opportunity could open up. And so that's how I would break down Detroit. Sacramento side of the ball. And Falk, he hasn't played in 4 games, hasn't played in 9. Falk, I just mentioned that those names maybe could mix in if a guy like Bogdanovich is out. I mean, Monty Williams does stupid shit all the time. I said yesterday that Clowney was going to play minutes, and I got clowned on by people. So, Falk, go on the Up the Lock show if you want to talk to the members. Sacramento side of the ball, I think De'Aaron Fox at 8-1 is just way too cheap. I think it's a really good play against Detroit. If the game is competitive too, you'll see a good game out of him. Guys like Malik Monk, Kevin Herter, they have some really good upside here. So definitely people that I'm going to be looking at. Trey Lyles is a value that people are going to that I'm not super excited about. It's not the worst play. I think a Peyton Pritchard we mentioned earlier is better. And Sabonis is going to be a really good contrarian spend at 10.1K that I am interested in.
All right, we got Falk's burner logging in. Mangone has the worst NBA takes. How many times do I have to say it? He wonders.
Hide. Stop hiding behind your burner and show me your real name. How about we do that? Stop hiding behind your burner.
I already told you who it was, Mangone. All right, last game of the night. This one should be relatively quick, I think. Pelicans and Clippers. Clippers favored by 6 here, 231 total. These teams pretty much healthy. The only real injury news we're waiting on is Zion with that same foot injury. He's played through this injury, I think, 3 games in a row, or at least 2. So I do expect Zion to be out there. I think it's one of those kind of questionable tag. But again, I do expect Zion to play in this game. I mean, some good players in this game, Big T, obviously, but with the big 3 healthy for the Clippers and Pelicans, I think are going to be healthy as well. I don't see myself really waiting to, play guys from this game with all the value we've got early. What about you, Pelicans and Clippers?
Yeah, easiest fade of the night for me. I mean, there's good plays in this game for sure. I mean, Kawhi, James Harden, Paul George, always in play. I mean, this is just one thing I do on slates, and Mangone's probably right. I do it a little too much at times, but I see no reason to go to this game. There's just better plays in other spots on top of it being at 10 o'clock. Like, I'm not waiting for this game.
No.
So I'm off this game unless like weird news hits that James Harden is out or something, then I pivot on to something. But as long as everyone's in the game, I see no reason to wait for news on this game.
Yeah. Personally, I'm not going to have a lot of spots on my roster after the 5 early games. And if I do, they're probably going to Sacramento and Detroit players over Pelicans and Clippers. So I'm off this game as well. Mangone, I assume you're mostly the same way.
Yeah, mostly the same way. The reason I liked Clippers the other day, and I talked about, is because it was the Atlanta Hawks, a team we like to target. Like, are the Pelicans a team I love to target? No. Now, could a Kawhi Leonard, like, if you're MMEing and you got 2% Kawhi Leonard, the only way I would get rid of him is if I wasn't getting enough of like a Victor Wembanyama, who I like a lot, right? That's kind of some of the stuff that's kind of how I handle it when I do my MME stuff. So if there's some of these options that I'm getting a sprinkle of, that's fine. If I'm getting a sprinkle of like Valanciunas and some of these other losers, no. The main guys I would be okay with getting exposure with are Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and I know Zion is questionable. So I'd be okay with leaving CJ McCollum and like a Brandon Ingram in the pool. But again, if I'm getting too much of them, I'm going to lower that. I'm going to make sure I'm not getting like a 20 or 30%. That's just kind of how I would personally allocate it. And that's how I'll probably be handling it on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah, might have went over Big T's a lot of time here on the free show. He might have left us. I'm not sure if that's for good, but we will do at least quickly the plays of the day. We'll leave Big T for last. We'll hopefully get him back here for his plays. Mangone, are you ready for your play of the day? If not, I can go first.
Now let's have you go first. I just want to
right.
I want to refresh ownership real quick because I think the guy that I want to say just could be owned, but I don't know. I might still just give him out.
I'm going to give 2 because one is contingent, and that is Patrick Beverly, but it is contingent on Tyrese Maxey missing. I'm not going to play Beverly if Maxey is in, but if Maxey is out, I do want Patrick Beverly on my team. I'm a believer in his role if Maxey does miss this game. And then the other guy that's going to be in my lineup regardless is Mr. Brandon Miller, play of the day from Monday. Going to stick with him today as well. We got Big T back in the saddle, but let's go to you, Mangone, your play of the day.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think this guy will be like 50% or something crazy. And if he is, whatever. Like, I want to make sure I give a guy that I'm definitely on and going to be on. And yesterday, the whole IO stuff messed everything up. So I'm going to go with Derek White. I just think at 6.5K, he's a very strong play. I really like him. I definitely want exposure to him. So give me Derek White as my play of the day.
Hard to argue with that one. We got White. We got Brandon Miller. We got perhaps Patrick Beverly. Big T, close us out with your play of the day today.
So I'm not on the free show all the time, but I had a guy I was holding on to today because I watched him the last 2 games. Didn't bring him up during the main thing. He's a value guy too. No one's going to play him tonight, and it's pure eyeball test. And this is what I love about the plays of the day. We already talked about all the guys I like, different things. I want to get somebody different in there. And my man from Golden State, Lester Quinones, didn't even talk about him. He played 23 and 19 minutes the last 2 games. He's 3,200. I watched him get key minutes that last game too against Atlanta. I love him at 3,200. When everyone's going to play Pritchard, nothing wrong with Pritchard, nothing wrong with Springer. I like those guys. I like all the value guys. But I love this guy. He's been getting minutes, more and more boost as we go, and I love it. It's everything I want in a play of the day. Because, like I said, a lot of chalk. I like a lot of the chalky guys. This is my low owned guy.
It's 68 good minutes of analysis from Big T, but he closes us down. With,
that's what the play of the day is all about. I got to get it in there.
Mr. Quinones, hey, don't hold the other 67 minutes to give Big T for the Quinones take. That'll do it for the show. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. I think the Up to Lock show already going on for members. If not, we'll be shortly. Jump over there if you are a member of RPS. And other than that, we will get out of here for Mangone, for Big T. I'm Draft Sheet, and we'll check you next time.